Hey guys, welcome back to Seduce Me. We are going to do the first of 3 bad endings. I finally got my brain cells straight. So, we only have to make a different choice with the Malix fight. So I'm just picking all the same options that I have in the good endings. And again, I'll just put a timestamp in the description. I was going to say directory. Yes, the directory down below the video. You can click on the timestamp. And that'll take you right to where the bad ending begins. But otherwise, I'm going to train with FAE. Because I'm still not going to have enough time to do all the trainers otherwise. So, it starts with exploring. So first, we're going to go left. And right. I was heading left, so I decided to go in the opposite direction this time. I turned right and headed down the hall, greeted by more fantastical decor. The hall became longer and longer as I continued to walk. However, I suddenly stopped at the sound of a shout.
Beware, my evil reign, and bow to your new overlord!
I'm starting to get a little worried about leaving FAE in charge one of these days. What the? I turned towards where the shout was erupting from and saw a door ajar. As I peeked into the room the door led into, I stared at what I saw. A floating creature was standing over top of the table that held a map and miniature pieces, as if someone had set up a strategy board game. The creature was planted on top of a red marker, as if the marker was their mount.
I will rule the entire world, and no one can stop me, because I am the Demon Lord!
That's a pretty good imitation. As it switched to a different personality, the creature quickly jumped and floated over to a purple marker, striking an exaggeratedly sexy pose. I wonder who that could be.
Oh no! I will stop you with my massive boobies and butt powers! I will rule this world, not you! And everyone will love me!
10 out of 10. 11 out of 10. IGN. Best Diana impression. I watched as the creature bounced back and forth between pretending to be the Demon Lord and Diana, lost and intrigued as to how small and quick they were.
Your boobies cannot scare me, for I have a penis, and penises ward off fear!
Wow, this went to a place I was not expecting.
You may have a penis, but I have an army that practically worships my overly curvy and ridiculously perfect body. Oh!
I stifled a laugh. I really did. This was actually rather amusing to watch, seeing the creature imitate the Demon Lord and their own leader.
Then come here, and I will show you the true power of a Demon Lord. Soldiers, attack!
I stared as the creature suddenly formed multiple little miniature soldiers on opposite sides of the table, using magic to make them clash and smack against each other, as if an invisible child was playing with them. There were even some small squeaky stuffed animals and glass figures smacking and crashing together. It was a chaotic little show.
Oh no! We're being overrun! Do not hold back! We'll beat him! The pain! Why? I see it! I see the light!
I couldn't stop the laughter from erupting from my stomach. I began to guffaw, amused by the little show I was witnessing. Sorry, FAE. It was like excellent though. The creature, in surprise, pooped into a cloud of smoke before appearing and falling back over the side of the table in its regular size. Or at least what I assumed to be the regular size. Whoa, I'm sorry. Are you okay?
Yep, I'm okay.
The creature managed to hop up and started floating again behind the table, giving me a thumbs up as if nothing was wrong. Their clothes were a bit disheveled, but they gave me a toothy grin.
Hiya!
Hi. Sorry for disturbing your,
Huh? Oh! My game! It's okay. I was just getting to the good part.
The good part? The creature nodded before leaning over the table and rearranging all of the figurines that still remained on it.
Yeah! When Diana kills the Demon Lord and takes over the world!
Oh! The way that they put it made it seem like Diana was going to be an overlord. Was she really trying to take over the world? The creature looked at me and chuckled.
Oh, you don't know what's happening, huh? Well, we're all fighting the Demon Lord, and by we, I mean me and Diana and the others. But anyway, we're fighting the Demon Lord because he's a tyrant and we don't like tyrants, so we're gonna kill him and take over.
Pretty good synopsis. They made it seem so simple and so joyous. You guys are really gonna kill him and take over?
Huh? Duh! The Demon Lord is completely crazy! He's burnt down so many villages and destroyed so many forests! He's only causing us harm! That's why we have to stop him!
I feel like Faye must come from Forest Land, because she's mentioned the forests in Sam's good endings, where she's like, let's rebuild the forests! And she's like, he destroyed so many forests! He's a madman! Interesting. The creature then put the purple marker next to the red marker, glaring at both.
We have to kill him before he hurts anyone else!
With a flick of their wrists, they used the purple marker and knocked the red one over violently, making it skid across the table towards the edge. Just from the look on their face, they seemed peeved about the Demon Lord. I would be too. Hell, I already was. You all will win. The creature looked up at me before letting go of the marker and placing their hands behind their head with a grin.
You think so?
I nodded with a reassuring smile. They seemed confident enough to battle the Demon Lord, and if it was for the best, then it had to be done. The creature nodded back to me before yawning.
So, you're gonna marry a demon, huh?
What? I stared at them, unsure of where the change in topic came from. The creature laughed a bit.
Don't tell me you forgot!
Oh, no, it's not that. It's just, where did this come from?
Well, you are heading home tonight. This is my only chance to ask why.
Why?
Yeah, why a demon? Why not another human? I mean, I'm not against demons and humans getting together or whatever, but I was just curious, you know? There are like billions of humans on your world. Why a demon?
I'm curious. What do you got to say, Angel? I took a moment to think about the demon in question whom I was marrying. His face made me smile, and the thought of being able to be with him again made my heart warm up in excitement. His presence remained in my heart, and I knew my answer. Because I love him.
You love him?
Yes, I do. The creature stared at me as if I had 3 heads. Was what I said wrong? No, it couldn't have been because it was true, and yet the creature continued to stare at me oddly. What?
Huh? Oh, nothing. It's just weird.
What's weird?
Love. It's just weird, okay? But if it works for you, that works, I guess. It's not like I'm the one getting married.
I wonder if we were with James, if Angel would have remembered, like, the whole conversation about love. I stared at the creature, unsure of what they meant. However, before I could question them, they yawned and stretched out.
Alright, I'm gonna steal some snacks.
Nice.
You should head back to your room or whatever so that Diana doesn't catch you snooping around. She doesn't like snooping. Or was it swooping?
The creature shrugged as I nodded. It was probably for the best that I returned to my room. I knew my way back, so I left the room and returned to my room. Well, that was a journey. That was an enjoyable journey, though. So, alright. Well, I'll bring you back in when I choose her them. I always want to say her. Sorry. When I choose them as my trainer. So I'll see you in a little bit, guys. Alright, so we're here. I'm gonna choose Faye as my trainer. And so, I think Diana said that, Faye's the last one she describes, that they can change their size and use elemental magic, so maybe we'll learn something about that. Diana raised an eyebrow, but nodded. Faye was a wild card, so who knew what they would teach me? Still, my curiosity was getting the better of me, and I knew it. I'd try it! Alright, so let's just skip until our training session. Alright, there we go. I reported to a large grand hall. Apparently, it was strictly to be used for Sero and Diana, but since training me for defense became a priority, I was given the room along with my trainer of choice, Faye. I didn't know what made me choose Faye. They were indeed a wild card choice. Who knew what I would learn from them? They were obviously a fairy, but what kind of abilities did fairies have in this world? I could tell that they were nothing like the fairies in fantasy fairy tales, so the idea of learning about them became a tantalizing curiosity within me. Gosh darn that curiosity. As I arrived, I saw Faye flutter about the room, wowed at the space they were given to train me.
Whoa! This room is so huge! How the heck did we get this room? When did the castle even have this room? Holy crap!
I stepped in, watching as the fairy flew to and fro from one side of the room to the other in excitement. Hopefully they wouldn't be too distracted by the size of the room to train me. Hey, Faye. Faye at last turned to me with a large grin and flew close to me, placing their hands behind their back.
Hiya! You ready to learn some cool tricks from a cool demon like me?
I smiled. I had picked a good trainer. Nodding, I pressed my hands on my hips. Absolutely, I'm ready. I'm waiting for her to just be like the most brutal of all the trainers. I mean them. I'm waiting for them to be the most brutal of all the trainers, even worse than Shadow. Faye grinned before floating over to the far end of the room, cupping their hands together and calling out to me.
Come over here!
I tilted my head, confused a bit, but shrugged and ran forward, eventually stopping at Faye's side. They clapped in applause, which made me a bit more confused, but I bowed to them amused.
Alrighty! Now, race it to the other side!
Wait, what? Before I could question Faye, they reeled back and zipped across the room towards the far wall. I rushed behind, trying to catch up, but didn't make it in time to beat Faye from touching the wall.
I win!
Because you didn't warn me this was going to be a race. Faye looked at me confused before rubbing their head.
But this is training! Aren't I supposed to teach you how to be fast and dodgy and stuff?
I suddenly realized what I had gotten myself into. Faye had no idea what they were doing. Oh. Hello, handsome. I like. A figure who was standing in the corner, watching the whole event, stepped out of the shadow, slightly surprising me as he walked up to Faye.
Boss, I think you should be teaching a human how to defend herself. Just saying.
I was not expecting that voice. Interesting. Faye turned around and flailed their arms at the figure.
Terminus! Don't tell me what to do! I can do this!
Terminus let out a snort with an amused smirk, crossing his arms at his apparent boss, and shrugged.
Alright, whatever you say. I was just making a suggestion.
Faye puffed out their cheeks at Terminus before turning back to me. I became concerned. Would I be able to learn anything from Faye other than racing? Get out of Dodge. Let's stay and try. Took a moment to take a deep breath and let it out. Who knew what Faye had in store? Maybe they'd teach me how to grow wings or become small. Their abilities could be pretty useful, especially the wings. Faye pressed a finger to their chin before suddenly getting an idea.
I know! I can teach you a really cool attack!
I suddenly became excited. An attack? I knew the training was meant for my self-defense, but having an offensive attack would prove to be very useful in the war I was essentially about to jump into. Faye grinned at me before turning to the open space and holding their hands out, closing their eyes and focusing their energy. I watched as a green orb slowly appeared before their palms, growing in size until it became the size of a baseball. Faye opened their eyes and gripped it with both hands, looking at me with a grin.
This is called the thorn bush.
Thorn bush? Faye nodded ecstatically before arching their hands back behind their head and chucking the orb forward into the space. As it impacted the ground, the orb popped like a bubble and released a cloud of green gas that covered a large portion of the floor. The gas quickly began to materialize into a web of thorny branches, stretching out over the floor and stopping just before where Faye and I stood. The branches continued to sway in the air as if they were alive. Whoa. I was absolutely astonished. This seemed like a really cool trap, but was it effective? I turned my gaze to Faye to see them look to Eternimus with a smug expression.
Hey, Eternimus! Try and walk through it.
With an amused grin and a roll of his eyes, Eternimus summoned his spear and walked forward into the area where the bush had made claim. I watched in curiosity, wondering what the thorn bush would do. I gasped as the branches closest to Eternimus began to lash out and strike at him, only to be blocked and cut down by his spear. With a concentrated expression, Eternimus began to cut through the bush, driving it back slowly but surely. While I understood that he knew about how to deflect Faye's trap, it was an interesting spell nonetheless. If anything, I was able to slow down enemies and attack them as I went on. A good distraction. As Eternimus reached the center, he rammed his spear into the spot where the bush sprouted from, causing the branches around him to wither and die, fading into the air like they were never there. Wow. That was interesting. Pretty cool. I have to admit, it looked really cool even to the end. It was very effective, and I was going to learn it. Go me! Faye turned and smiled at me, bobbing a bit in the air in excitement.
Isn't it? It's one of my favorite trap spells. What's even cooler is that if you throw it at a person, they'll be covered in thorns and won't be able to fight back!
That was a game changer. I stared at Faye, shocked. It really could do stuff like that? Then again, there wasn't really a good way to test it because none of us wanted to be on the receiving end of that spell, and there was no training dummies in the room. I had to take their word for it. Faye grinned before crossing their legs and sitting on the air, pondering.
What else to show you?
Eternimus looked over and shook his head, walking back to his corner.
Make the human try what you just did first before showing us something new.
All right!
Faye looked over at me and waved their hands out into the room, gesturing me to do what they did. It was mildly adorable to see them do that, but I shook my thoughts out and focused on trying to replicate what Faye did. I looked to my hands, trying to focus on forming the green orb in my hands. I began to imagine it, hoping it would spark my energy to perform the spell, but I found that imagination wouldn't work, or at least wasn't enough. I glared at the back of my hands, trying to figure it out. Faye floated beside me and looked at my hands as well, tapping their chin.
Maybe if you squint really hard or something.
Faye? I turned my head to Faye, not wanting to be a bad student, but needing the teacher to actually teach me. Faye floated back and bit, placing their hands in front of them by their chest.
I'm sorry. I mean, it's like,
Like what?
Well, I mean, you're a human, and I don't exactly know if you have magic and stuff, like,
Faye wiggled their arms beside them, flailing a bit before flying around me and scratching their head.
Like, brute demons have, like, rage energy to battle, and then Diana has her ooh-la-la kind of sexual energy or whatever to power her powers. But for me, it just comes naturally, you know? I just think about it, and poof, it happens! But I'm a demon, so it's supposed to happen.
I nodded, understanding what they meant, but I pressed forward, knowing humans could perform magic if they wanted to. We had energy too, after all. Well, can you show it to me again? Or maybe do it with me or something? Faye tapped their chin, listening to me before nodding and turning to the side. They pointed their hands out and focused on their fingers, which caused me to turn and do the same. I stared as Faye took a breath and mimicked them perfectly. I was going to do this one way or another. I looked to my hands and tried to focus one more time. I tried to imagine my energy flowing into my hands and forming the green orb, hoping it would spur the action to happen. come on. Finally, something in my mind clicked. I closed my eyes and focused on my breathing, feeling the air flow through my body. I began to mentally scour my body, taking note of the inhales and exhales I released before figuring it out. I concentrated on the air in my body, imagining it to be like the energy I imagined myself to have. Like that, I felt very faint waves pulse through my body, confirming that I indeed had energy to use, and a lot of it. I smiled and looked to my hands again, knowing and feeling the energy within me before committing to call it forward into a green orb. Obediently, my energy began to flow into my hands, making them blow lightly before... Blow lightly or glow lightly? Before forming an orb just in front of my palms. It began to pulse and grow in size, making Faye look over and gasp.
Holy crap, you're doing it! You're doing it!
I grinned from ear to ear as I continued to focus on the orb. Once it became the size of both of my hands, I grasped onto it and pulled it over my head before chucking it into the empty room. Just like Faye's orb, mine popped once it crashed into the floor and formed large strings and lines of thorny branches, waving creepily in the air and releasing a threatening appearance. I couldn't have been prouder of myself. Faye zipped through the air happily, punching their fist into the air.
Yeah! You did it!
I couldn't help but jump a bit as well. It was tough, but I had managed to pull it off. I felt a slight tingle in my hands and arms from using energy, but I didn't mind. Faye finally floated over to me and grabbed my hands, shaking them in joy.
We are gonna have so much fun training!
I guess I don't have to ask if everything is okay in here.
Oh, hello, Diana. Faye and I turned our heads to see Diana leaning against the doorway with a small smirk. I smiled a bit and nodded, looking to the magic I had performed that was still wriggling in the center of the room. Faye released my hands and flew over to Diana, grabbing the succubus's hand and pulling her into the room.
Whoa!
Look! Isn't it so impressive? It's the second best spell I know and she mastered it!
Wait, what? I stared at Faye in shock. This was their second best spell? They really trusted me to learn it and it was the second best? What was the first? What was the last? Diana observed the branch monster I had essentially summoned and nodded with a chuckle.
I told you. She's a powerhouse of energy. I'm not surprised that she could pull this off.
I felt a bit flattered that Diana believed in me, but Faye flew around Diana and flicked the succubus's hair, making Diana jump a bit and glare at the flying demon.
Yeah, but you didn't tell me that she was awesome!
Diana chuckled a bit before letting out a sigh with a shake of her head.
I'll leave you be then. Have fun, dears.
Well, that went a little better than Sergeant. Faye was grinning from ear to ear as Diana turned on her heel and walked away. As soon as she left the room, Faye spun around me and lifted themselves higher into the air.
Alrighty, let's make you the master of the thorn bush.
I felt excitement rush through my veins. This was going to be fun. We spent the entire day focusing on how to make the spell happen quicker, faster, and come more naturally to me. I left exhausted but thrilled at what I was now able to do. Cool. Alright. Well, I guess I'll call you guys in for the second training session. So I'll see you in a little bit, guys. Alright, here we go again. I began to feel a bit elated at the idea of walking to train with Faye. The stress of the morning needed to be burnt away with a workout, and I knew that Faye would teach me something to take my mind off of it. It became like a game, a relief away from the reality of the world. I made my way to the grand hall and stopped at the doorway, looking and taking in the sight of Faye sleeping on the ground spread eagle style. Yeah, you good? You good there, Faye? It took every ounce of control I had not to laugh hysterically at the sounds Faye was releasing as they slept. To think such sounds came out of a cute-looking demon like Faye seemed rather bizarre and cartoon-like. Nevertheless, I knew I had to get started on training. The boys were most likely in the midst of their own training as I stood there, so I couldn't exactly spend time watching Faye snore. I stepped quietly into the room, drawing closer to Faye's body as I tried to think of how to wake them up. Scare them. It was only going to be a little scare. A little fun never hurt anyone, right? I tiptoed further into the room, making sure not to wake up Fae as I approached them and circled around them. As I finally stood behind their head, I crouched down and cupped my hands together. Mwahahahaha! Fae jolted up like they had been zapped by a bolt of lightning and shot themselves into the air like a rocket before slamming their head into the ceiling.
Ow! Ow! Ow!
Oops. Oh my god! Fae! The temporary hilarity I felt as I scared Fae quickly vanished as the sound of their head colliding with the ceiling echoed through the room and the fairy in question quickly descended, holding their head. Fae, I am so sorry.
It's okay. Ow. I needed to wake up anyways.
Fae finally floated to be level with my height, shaking their head and rubbing over where their head collided with the ceiling. I bit my lip and rubbed the back of my neck, feeling now very embarrassed and ashamed of what I chose to do. Fae wiggled their arms and let out a tired sigh before blowing raspberries with their mouth and slamming their hands against their cheeks.
I am awake!
That's basically what I try to do in the morning, too. Like, I decree I am now awake, and I shall not be tired anymore. Doesn't work, though. Sad face. I had to cover my mouth to stop the burst of laughter that wanted to erupt from my gut at the exclamation. Fae became full of energy like it was the flip of a switch. I became mildly jealous of such a feat. Nevertheless, I was eager and ready for my next training session. I placed my arms at my sides and straightened my back, showing the posture of determination and attention. What will we be doing today? Fae looked over at me, looking for some sort of answer in my eyes. Despite showing the sudden energy spark like a light bulb earlier, they remained silent for a moment. Were they not sure? I hoped that today wouldn't be going over the thorn bush again. As much as it was a cool trick, casting a thorn bush into existence from dawn to dusk was not as fun as many would imagine it to be, even with hilarious breaks in between. Finally, a glimmer twinkled in Faye's eyes, making them grin from ear to ear at me.
I know what we're gonna do!
What? With a burst of energy, Faye shot themselves into the air and spun around before flipping upside down in the air towards me.
I'm gonna teach you how to fly!
Sweet! What? Fly? My mind completely blanked on itself. Fly? I was really going to be taught how to fly? I didn't have wings. How the heck was I going to do that? Didn't you ever watch Peter Pan, Angel? Faye nodded ecstatically before swooping down and flying around me.
It's so easy. You just need to imagine yourself floating in the air and boom! You'll be flying in no time.
You're not gonna sprinkle me with pixie magic? Pixie dust? I grimaced watching Faye fly around me. I suddenly felt like I was in Peter Pan and had to think happy thoughts and go to the second star to the right to Neverland. Well, Faye was a fairy, so... I'm suddenly imagining you as Tinkerbell, Faye. Faye's got a much more, cheerful personality than Tink, though.
Tinker who?
Right. Demon world, not human world. Never mind. Faye stopped circling me and stared for a moment before shrugging and floating away from me, crossing their arms proudly and physically imitating Sergeant.
Now get those feet off the ground!
I looked down at the ground at my boot-covered feet. Making a thorn bush was one thing. Making myself fly was another. I tried to imagine it, but there was no energy in my body that would respond to such a request. How the heck was I going to fly? Think happy thoughts. As stupid as the idea was, what if the thought had merit? If energy came from within me somehow, then maybe my emotions would give me that boost that I needed. A happy thought, as cliché as it was, might have been the trick. I closed my eyes and tried to think of every happy thing in my life, tossing aside my situation. I was in a loving relationship with a man who wanted to devote his life to me. I had a loving family and amazing friends. I was going to get married soon. The thought of my marriage made my entire body warm in a happy feeling. I was going to be married to the most wonderful man in the world, and we would live together for the rest of our lives and beyond. The feeling of the wedding band on my ring finger intensified the feeling, making me smile and let out a sigh. Would that be enough? However, after almost a full minute of concentration, nothing seemed to occur. Darn. I opened my eyes and looked down at myself. My feet were still on the ground and nothing changed within me. A flash of anger sparked within me. How difficult was it to lift off of the ground? How the heck can I fly? As soon as the word burst from my mouth, I shot my hands down in anger, only to be vaulted into the air by some sort of energy force beneath my feet. My body quickly shot up, defying gravity and sending me towards the ceiling. Gah!
Whoa!
Faye quickly zipped over towards me and grabbed me, intercepting my quick ascent to the ceiling while holding me closer to them. It was like being held by a very strong child, as their small frame barely lined up from my shoulder to my knee. It hit me for a split moment. Faye was ridiculously small. Nevertheless, I gripped onto Faye, thankful that I wasn't going to crash into the wood above us, and looked around in awe. I was really in the air, flying, or at least being held up by some force. I could feel energy cycle around and through my body, most likely keeping me afloat. I could fly! You can fly, you can fly, you can fly. I looked at Faye with growing excitement at the situation. This was the best feeling ever. Faye grinned before slowly letting me go, proving that they weren't holding me up and that I wasn't imagining anything. Holy crap. Anger worked. Pure elation rushed through me as I merely measured the distance between my feet and the floor. I was in the air and slowly bobbing up and down like Faye, floating freely against gravity. I did it!
You did it! You're flying!
I willed my body forward, feeling the air around me slowly guide me. In obedience, the energy in my body moved me through the space. It was incredibly odd, feeling the air slightly brush against my entire body, but I was indeed moving forward. A large grin graced my face as I became more determined with my mental commands. I flew towards Faye and circled them before suddenly flying around the space. I felt as free as a bird, letting my mind naturally drive me in each direction I wanted to go in.
Here we go! You're getting it!
Woohoo! Out of pure adrenaline, I arched back and did a flip in the air before rocketing back forward and gliding over to turn away from the wall I was quickly approaching. The rush of this new power became addicting, and I wanted to do more with it. Still, I couldn't deny the effects using this power was putting me in. I could feel my energy quickly drain away the longer I remained in the air. A slight tingling sensation ran over my legs and hands, reminding me that I had a limited amount of energy. I mentally took note of it and floated over to Faye, putting a lid on my over-enthusiastic glee from the new power and preparing myself for further instruction. Alright, I can fly now. What's next? Faye laughed before planting their hands on their hips.
You really like flying, huh?
I couldn't help but nod. This was the most exciting thing I had done in the demon world thus far. It was like I was a superhero or something. I barely had to think about staying up to remain in the air, and it was increasingly making me giddy. Faye grinned before circling around me and gesturing to me to follow them.
Then let's have a little fun! Come on!
Within the blink of an eye, Faye zipped out of the room and into the hall. What? Hey! Not wanting to lose them, I willed myself forward, starting the chase. I quickly arched around the corner, locking Faye into my sights before building up speed to cut at my increasing distance. Faye was ridiculously fast, and I barely managed to dodge the obstacles in our way, which included other demons and decor.
Whoa!
Ah! Sorry, not sorry!
Despite ducking and dodging each speed bump in the halls, I couldn't help but laugh at the thrill of the experience. Faye looked back at me and laughed as well, but suddenly dropped their expression.
Ah!
With almost a screeching halt, Faye turned their body back upright and stopped going forward, holding out their hands and stopping me as well. To my surprise, Faye managed to stop me without budging from their place, like they were a perfect brick wall. Why did Faye stop? I turned upright as well, suddenly confused. Faye, however, floated forward ever so slightly and looked into a nearby room, peeking over the corner of the barely opened doorway. Out of my own curiosity, I did as well, feeling my energy die out and lower me to stand on the floor at last. Interesting. The room we were peeking into happened to be the war room, and we stared at the back of Diana's head as it looked down at the table in front of her, her hands gripping the edges like angry vices ready to break it. How did Faye know Diana was in here? And what the heck was Diana upset about?
How could a squad of scouts be found and slaughtered by a band of wild harpies?
Diana seemed to answer the question, but my mind began to try and imagine what she had said. Harpies existed? A squad of scouts were out and were killed? I looked up at Faye, seeing them press their lips together in worry as they stared at the succubus. As I turned to look back at Diana, however, I silently gasped and covered my mouth at what I had laid my eyes upon. Oh dear, there it is again. Around Diana's body was a black and purple fiery aura, flickering frighteningly in the air around her as she dug her nails into the wood of the table.
I'll have to search for it myself then. But where to start?
Before I could watch further, suddenly afraid of Diana, Faye grabbed my shirt and quickly pulled me away from the door, making sure to cover the hand I had placed over my mouth with their own for safety.
Let's go. We should get back to training.
Without even giving me an explanation or chance to break free, Faye guided me back to the training hall. My mind became full of questions, but as we returned to the training hall, Faye became almost like a military sergeant. I had to practice flying and forming my thorn bush to build my stamina until the end of the day. By then, I was too exhausted to ask questions and just returned to my room. I would ask tomorrow. Interesting. Okay, so that was the second one, so I'll bring you in for the next training session. The last one, guys. Alright, last training session. As I walked to the Grand Hall to meet with Faye, to meet with them for training, my mind slowly began to trickle in memories of the day before. What was up with Diana, and what was with her aura? She seemed normal so far, but remembering the sight of her in angry flames made me a bit worried. What was she planning on doing, and where was she going to go? I finally reached the Grand Hall, seeing Faye holding a strangely woven basket of sorts. Peeking from the top was an intricate-looking bottle, and I could faintly catch the sight of some items wrapped in green leaves. Were we going somewhere? I tilted my head at Faye and walked towards them. What's the basket for?
Well, we gotta have food if we're gonna go out today, right?
Huh? Where are we going? I thought we had to train. However, the new look on Faye's face proved that today was not going to be about practicing anything.
I want to take you somewhere outside the castle. We'll be in a safe place, I promise. Want to come?
Warnings about leaving the castle entered my mind, reminding me of Diana's heavy suggestion the day I had arrived in the demon world. Did I really want to leave the castle now? We gotta go through with this. Sure. A moment's peace achievement unlocked. Thinking about it, the week had been pretty stressful. Maybe it was time for a break. A day wasn't going to hurt us, right? Right. I nodded with a smile, making Faye grin back at me before taking my hand and leading me out into the hall. I'm curious. They guided me through the castle to the front gate, then released my hand to fly high into the air.
Come on!
I stared up at the open sky before taking a breath and nodding. I jolted my hands towards the ground and up I went into the air. Faye cheered silently before flying out over the forest, causing me to follow suit. Ooh. The journey forward continued for almost a half hour before we arrived at a large mountain cliffside. Faye landed on it and set down their basket before opening a large sheet and draping it over the side of the cliff. This was indeed a picnic. I landed by the cloth before stepping over it and sitting down, letting my feet dangle over the edge. We were pretty high up and the sight was gorgeous, but I was pretty sure we were safe as long as we didn't do something stupid. Faye followed suit and sat near me, pulling up the basket of their goodies between our hips. They reached into it and pulled out 2 small packages, both wrapped in large leaves and held together with twine. Lambda bread?
Here, made it myself.
Faye handed one to me and began to open theirs up, allowing me to look down and observe what I had been given. It was light, like a sandwich, so I expected it to be such. Unwrapping it was easy enough with a simple tug. As the leaf opened up, I stared at what was inside. It was a sandwich-sized block of what looked like bread peppered with little spots of green veggies and seeds of different kinds. I was intrigued just looking at it. What is this?
Good.
I stared for a bit before breaking off a piece of it to taste. It broke off rather easily, revealing a soft and steamy warm center. It became even more interesting to me as I lifted the piece to my lips and took a bite. I expected it to taste somehow exotic or wild and crazy. I was completely incorrect. Bread. It tasted like bread. Fresh bread, but still bread. I love fresh bread. Oh man, so good. I I chewed a bit and swallowed, accepting that my expectations were cruelly deceived before looking to Faye and seeing them practically chow down on their bread block. They seemed to enjoy it a lot. Was I missing something? Yeah, you're missing the fact that warm, fresh bread is delicious. I took another bite and tasted it again. There's a bit more taste the second time, as the taste of the seeds popped out on my taste buds, but it wasn't anything truly marvelous. Maybe it was enough for a demon. Or me. Faye finished their bread before grinning at me, crumbs decorating their lips and cheeks before they licked it all away with their tongue. I took another bite of my bread before looking out to the forest before us. This is a pretty nice place.
Yeah, this place is pretty nice. I come here and eat all the time.
Really?
Uh-huh. I really don't like the food they make at the castle, especially the stew. Blech.
Fair. I tilted my head, vaguely remembering being offered stew the day after I came into this world. What was wrong with it? What's wrong with the stew? Faye looked over at me and gasped, their face slightly turning green despite the surprised fear in their eyes.
You didn't eat it, did you?
Well, no, but... Faye let out a relieved sigh, placing their hand on their chest. Question it. Now I was insanely curious. What was wrong with the stew? I turned to Faye and leaned in, catching their gaze and making them stare back at me. Faye, what is in that stew?
Well,
Faye? Faye shut their eyes before covering their head, curling into themselves.
It's Imp! Pig Fawn Imp!
Oh. I stared, taking it in. Pig Fawn Imp? Then I remembered the Demon Lord's henchman from the vision the boy showed me when we met. The Demon Lord had a servant that looked like a pig fawn. According to Diana, the Demon Lord had imps, so the servant had to be one. On top of that, one apparently had snuck into the castle to electrocute Diana the first day I came. Ew. Oh no. Did she kill him and stick him in a stew? Did I almost eat a demon? My stomach felt suddenly queasy as I covered my mouth and took in a heavy breath in realization. I was now incredibly grateful Diana had stopped me.
I am so sorry. At least you didn't eat it, right?
I nodded, shaking out my nerves and calming down. Thank God I didn't eat it. Faye let out a sigh and leaned back on their arms, looking up at the sky above us.
You know, for a human, you are pretty good with magic.
Thank you. I looked over at them and tilted my head. Where was this coming from? Faye, I only really know 2 spells.
So, there are some demons who only know 1 spell. You know 2! That's better than 1, right?
I was surprised, but I nodded. There were demons like that? Faye let out a sigh.
There are all kinds of magic in the universe, you know? For you to master demon magic, let alone fairy magic, that's a really cool talent.
Angel's a jack of all magic trades things. I smiled, happy to know that I was being seen as talented. Something about hearing a demon telling me that I was talented, when it wasn't my fiancé, made me feel really special. Faye reached between us and brought out the bottle, popping the cork and offering it to me.
Want some?
What is it?
A brew from where I was born, Salakfion. It's good, I promise.
Oops. Sure. Might as well. I gently took the bottle from Faye and lifted it to my lips, taking a sip and being surprised at the taste. If it was alcohol, it definitely didn't taste like it. A gorgeous mixture of berries and mineral water danced along my tongue, revealing a hint of some spice I couldn't recognize. It went down like water and spurred me to take a good swig before passing it back to Faye, wiping my lip. Wow, that's amazing.
I know, right?
Faye cheered before lifting it up and chugging a good percent of it down. We shared the bottle, only limited to that 1 bottle, and enjoyed the state of mild euphoria it gave us. As we sat back, we let out a simultaneous sigh.
You know, something's wrong with Diana.
There it was. I figured there was a reason she brought me out here. I mean, they. I looked over at Faye to see them still gazing into the air, cheeks slightly pink from the drink they had, but they continued to speak naturally.
I have this thing, like, I can sense danger and stuff, and lately, Diana's been flaring up for me like no tomorrow, you know? Like she's
She's what?
like she's turning into the Demon Lord or something. She's growing more, quick to make angry? Maybe.
It's interesting. I wonder how she dealt with that, because it never seemed to come back up in the endings where she rules, even when you don't help her deal with her muse. So I wonder how she got that under control. I could tell that this was the reason why Faye needed to leave the castle. This concern was definitely one Faye needed to figure out, or at least vent about. Diana seemed to be close to them. What do you think could have changed her?
I don't know. I mean, she's always kind of been a, I guess, passionate person. You know, since she hates the Demon Lord and stuff. But she's mostly been pretty nice and stuff until recently.
Really? She was nice even when you met her?
Really? Especially when I met her. I went to her after my entire clan was burned and, well, she kinda took me in and asked me to help her in the war. I was the first person besides for her guard to work with her.
That was an interesting story. While it was sad what happened to Faye's clan, they seemed to have moved on and were okay with where they were. Faye tilted back and lounged back on the blanket. So they and Diana have kind of a similar history in that respect.
I've pretty much been there ever since the war started. I've never seen her get so angry and stuff. At least not to the point where she suddenly, poof, burst into flames.
That does seem a bit odd. I became concerned for Diana too. Would she be okay? She was leading a large rebellion against a murderous psychopath, so it seemed to come with the job, but if Faye watched her and saw this change, then what could have sparked it? I shook my head and fell back on the sheet beneath us as well, staring into the open sky. I couldn't spend my time thinking about it. I was out to relax with Faye, and they seemed to want to get off of the topic now that they had said their piece. We relaxed there, chatting away at random topics until it was time to head back, practice a bit of what I knew, and separate for the night. Hopefully things would be settled soon. Right, so then tests and things. So I'll bring you guys back in when we're gonna storm the castle and see how we get there this time, and then have a showdown with Malix again. So I'll see you in a little bit. Oh right, I forgot about the little rebellion. Rebellion within the rebellion. I got found out again. Gosh darn, here we go again. Gah!
Hey boss, found something for you.
Huh? Ah, shit.
Sorry. I grimaced now out in the open. The four stared at me with cold eyes as if they were ready to send me back to the human world as a corpse rather than going through with the siege. Alright, so let's skip a bit. Something about that? Okay. There was more to the story. Hit me with it, Faye.
Look, I mean, it's not like I want to, okay?
I looked at Faye, confused. They twiddled their thumbs as they looked at their fellow demons.
The Demon Lord is a bad guy, and we just don't want another demon like him. And Diana's a very, very powerful succubus, you know?
What does that have to do with anything? Faye sighed and rustled their hair.
Well, she's like mega powerful and stuff. If she goes mad and takes over the world, we'd be screwed, you know? She can enthrall armies and stuff with just a snap of her fingers. Who knows what kind of damage she could do if she went crazy? I really don't care what happens after. I just don't want my people killed because of her stupid leadership.
I could tell that Faye was trying to be sensible about the issue, but in her eyes, their eyes, I could see the fear of the situation. So, okay, at least I'm not the only one who, like, mistakenly refers to Faye as she, because even the writer does it, so I'm like, phew. They were probably the only one who believed in their cause that Diana was mad, or at least in danger of becoming so. Alright. So now I gotta say I believe in Diana. I'll believe in you guys later. I promise. But anyway, might as well keep you guys because we're almost at the time. The appointed time. Alright.
When you get to the castle, I will be...
She'll be okay. She's got my magic with her.
Thanks, Faye. Alright, so we got that out of the way. To war we go again. Alright. The journey was surprisingly, dare I say it, peaceful? The sound of the war exploded beside us outside of the tree line, causing me to cover my ears a bit from the volume, but I shook my head and pressed forward, not wanting to become distracted. The goal was to get to the castle. I had to focus. As I rushed forward, I felt my instincts go aflutter, causing me to stop and remember that I could fly. My incubus skidded to a halt beside me, looking to me in out of breath confusion.
Hey! Whoa! Why are we stopping?
I looked up at him, staring into his eyes and contemplating my plan. It took a lot of energy out of me, but it was faster than running. Plus, I would be holding him with me, adding on to the weight. I took a moment before mentally hitting the, fuck it button. I quickly grabbed my incubus's hand and pulled him close, tightly wrapping an arm around him and shooting a hand down to the ground. Fly! As my voice rang through the air, my feet suddenly were pushed up and off of the ground, pulling my incubus along with me and causing him to wrap his arms around me in utter surprise and fear falling.
Holy shit!
I love Sam's reactions, they're great. Our bodies shot into the air, above the trees, and let us see the battle raging beside us. I stared in shock as the battle escalated between the two sides, slicing and ripping at each other for territory and ground. Still, the thought of the castle ran through my mind, causing me to shake my head and fly us forward, and the incubus in my arms held me tighter. It was a little cute to think about him holding me like this for once as I guided us through the air. I knew that there were imps still in the forest below, however, so I glared into the trees and pointed a hand out, forming a familiar green orb in my hand and chucking it into the woods. I repeated the action over and over as we continued forward. I could faintly hear the sounds of the imps below becoming caught in my thorns, some even crying out from actually being impacted by one of my orbs and being cocooned by a thorny trap. My incubus, despite probably being surprised at my carnage, ignored the sounds below us and held me close to him, knowing that if he let go, he would fall. I wasn't focused on him at the moment. All I cared about was getting us to the castle, in one piece. By the time we reached the end of the forest, there were a slew of dead bodies behind us, all entangled in a forest full of thorn bushes. I landed at the tree line, panting and feeling waves of exhaustion running through my body. I panted for air, slowly focusing on calming down as my energy quickly depleted from its continued usage to keep me in the air. That was all I could do before my energy was expended and a wave of exhaustion rolled through my body. Alright, that's that. And now it's time to go to the option that will get a bad ending. Probably one of us, if not both of us, killed, because that's how bad endings seem to go so far. Heyo, Malix. This time I help him! I wasn't going to be helpless this time. Besides, I was confident that I was still protected by my grandfather's protection spell against hellborn magic. I quickly rushed forward and prepared an attack, but Malix quickly turned his eyes to me with a large smirk and swung his arm towards me, revealing a sharp red blade.
Die!
I didn't get a chance to blink before suddenly being ripped from life. Darkness welcomed me as the ruthless swing cut through my neck and ended me. How could this be? Man, that was clean. The last thing I heard was Sam screaming my name. Hand of the devil. And just like that, wha-bam! We're done. That's a good thing I did some training, so there was, like, some stuff to do. Otherwise, that would have been, like, what, a 5-second video? Well, that was quick and clean, Malix. You didn't waste any time. I thought Malix would kind of, like, drag it out a little bit more, but he's just like, not falling for that again. Just get it over and done with. Move on with your life. Alright, so that was bad ending number 1. That wasn't too traumatic as far as bad. It's funny to say that. Her head got cut clean off. That wasn't too traumatic as far as bad endings. Anyway, okay, so that's that. The next bad ending has quite a few different options to pick, but we'll save that for another video. I hope you guys enjoyed training with Faye, at least. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you for bad ending number 2. Thanks again for watching. Until then, I will see you later.